Hello, thank you all for coming today. We're just waiting for someone from the Assemblage to give a few words about where you are in this incredibly magnificent space that's hosting us. But in the meantime, I'll talk a little bit about Winter Jazz Fest and why we're here today. So my name is Neal Ludevig. I'm the CEO of Moon 31. I am working in partnership with Moon 31 and Winter Jazz Fest to bring together change makers and leaders in the music industry that are making a difference. So let's start with Winter Jazz Fest. It's started small. This is its 16th year. Yeah, give a round of applause for that. So 16th year, and it's expanded pretty substantially. Now it reaches 16,000 attendees, 10 days. It's in 22 venues in 2 boroughs. So it's really making a difference and a splash and supporting a lot of musicians in the process. And this panel series is actually part of that expansion. Last year we had 3 that tackled social justice and gender equality. This year we've actually quintupled the amount of conversations. So we've gone to 15, and we are addressing wellness in the arts, an incredibly important issue that is highlighting many of the taboo subjects that aren't spoken about. Everything from recovery to substance abuse to addiction to issues within mental health. There are so many inspiring individuals that make up the music industry and are musicians and artists and presenters and tour managers that suffer from these issues and often don't know about the resources or the people that are making an impact in this world. By giving a platform to the people that are making these differences and creating these resources, we're hoping that these dots can connect and really help support this. So today, we've brought some of the change makers that are making a difference. We've got an incredible group of individuals from private, from public, from government, and nonprofit. So these are the individuals that are making up the city's ecosystem of arts and this landscape. So I'm going to take a moment just to introduce a few of them. Because they, you know, I won't take too much time, but because I can probably go on and on. But I'll start with Erika, who's sitting to my left. This is Erika Elliott. She has been working for I think you were the longest running director at Summerstage for programming in its 30-year history. She's played a pivotal role in the festival's success. I've worked with her in a few different regards, but she has spearheaded some incredible initiatives, which we'll be talking about today. But this includes 100 free programs that include 30 performances at Summerstage in Central Park, 3 months of programming citywide at Summerstage. That's family programs, and it serves all 5 boroughs. She's also responsible for the oversight of the Swedish Marionette Theater in Central Park, programming marionette shows year-round. And she's originally from Los Angeles and joined the staff, kind of going into her background. She started at Loud Records in '96, worked in marketing and promotion for many hip-hop projects and artists such as Wu-Tang's Forever, Big Punishers, Capital Punishment, and I'm sure many, many more. I'll move on to Ariel. That's plenty. Ariel is the first ever mayor of Nightlife in New York City. So she is the senior executive director of New York City's Office of Nightlife. She is a lifelong New Yorker, a nightlife professional. She has worked in nearly every different sector in the city. She came to the role with a deep experience in nightlife and community building. She actually owned and operated Sutra Lounge, a nightclub on the Lower East Side, for 10 years. Served on Manhattan Community Board 3's Liquor Licensing Committee for more than 6 years and spent 3 years prior her appointment helping nightlife entrepreneurs open their own establishments. And she has been a vital part of this city's ecosystem, culture, and identity. Yes, so I'll move on to Elizabeth Hamby. Elizabeth Hamby is an artist as well as the director of Take Care New York at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Take Care New York is the city's blueprint for giving everyone the chance to live a healthier life. Its aim is to improve everyone's community health, especially among those groups with the worst health outcomes. She leads storytelling campaigns, develops networks of partners across sectors, and develops policy to advance take care of New York's priorities. As an artist, she creates projects that make complex issues legible to help people work together. She's led a waterfront planning studio out of a neighborhood laundromat, formed a bike collective to address transportation issues, and worked with youth in public housing to develop haikus about littering. So she's done quite a few different things. And the last person I'll introduce is Justin. Justin is also a good friend. He is one of the owners of House of Yes, a very popular nightclub in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And actually, it's been in nearly every major media outlet. I think the last time I saw it was in Time Out New York, and it was listed as the #2 thing to do in the world. So they've really kind of changed the game, and they have some incredible initiatives that start with pro-consent, raising awareness about environmental sustainability and equality, to which we'll talk about later today, really informing and making sure their staff are ready for just about anything when it comes to mental health and substance abuse and in that world. Justin is also an accomplished musician and percussionist. He's internationally toured for nearly a decade with Consider the Source. He's also, as with all of these people, wearing quite a few hats. So I'll get to it because we've got many questions and probably not enough time to address all of them. So what I'd like to do is start and ask, what are all of your definitions, and you can open this up however you like, of health. What does health and wellness look like for the spaces and the organizations, and even for you personally? Whoever would like to jump in, however you'd like to take it.
I can start. Well, in the context of this discussion, I feel like we're looking at the health of, first of all, our nightclub and our block, and then the health of Bushwick and greater Brooklyn. And I feel like these things, like when you can start locally and slowly kind of spread the word and get teammates, then it can affect a greater portion of the city. So we're really looking now that I feel like Bushwick is kind of growing, and a lot of these initiatives are spreading between other business owners. We're looking to really expand out into greater Brooklyn and then into like Manhattan and the whole city, really, because it's just such a large ecosystem that when the city is strong and the city is healthy, and all the businesses thrive and all the citizens thrive, really. They had an initiative recently in Amsterdam and in Berlin where they were doing kind of like the Nightlife mayor, and those things kind of spread to other cities. So I feel like once New York can really expand and develop itself as like a healthy ecosystem for nightlife and sustainability, these things can spread globally in the end. And that's the kind of things we talk about in our partner meetings. Really starting at home, starting small, starting slow, and expanding out on the block, in the neighborhood, in the borough, and into the greater city.
So from a mayoral standpoint, it's true that Berlin and Amsterdam and London were some of the first offices worldwide that had a nightlife office to represent the nightlife industry and ecosystem. There's now almost 50 of them around the world, actually, and it's really part of a global movement about recognizing that nightlife is not a liability, but an opportunity to look out for ourselves and to look out for each other and to be able to educate each other, because really what they are social places, social experiences where people all come together in mass. And it really is a place where we can actually set the tone, set the tide for change and evolution of thought and education. I mean, we can see just with the banning of the plastic straw, how just a nightlife venue banning a straw can bring such awareness and consciousness to an individual about the impact that they have on the environment. And that it's something that is a personal responsibility, but that we can educate through the nightlife ecosystem. And that goes for all the elements of the ecosystem and how we can look out for each other: mental health awareness, sustainability, consent, food rescue and sustainability, And I think what's really great about having this new office of nightlife is that we get an opportunity to help redefine what nightlife means and to be able to really begin to utilize it as the opportunity that it is, and to destigmatize, decriminalize. And from my perspective, also what we're here to do is to help amplify all the great work that everyone in this community, this nightlife New York community is doing, and global community, to really create this umbrella where people can find that information and be able to access that information. So to answer the question about what is a healthy city or healthy nightlife, it's really being able to have access to the resources to live better, and to know that you can. And we can do that through nightlife because we have people come, thousands of people coming through those doors that want that information.
All right, I actually want to ask the audience a question. How many people in the room are artists? All right. How many people in the room are producers? How many people in the room are involved with music in some other way? And folks involved with other forms of the arts? Everybody else? Okay. And how many folks here are working on health? What do you mean? Aha! I think some of people got the answer because it's a trick question. You all are part of creating a healthy city. So coming from the health department's perspective, our job is to protect and promote the health of all New Yorkers. But there's no way that we can do that without the engagement and the participation of really everyone. So health is not just about not being sick. It's actually about a complete and total state of wellness. And what we know from looking at health data is while our city has never been healthier, there are also persistent gaps that make it hard for non-white folks, for non-straight folks, for folks who are not gender conforming, to live as long and as healthfully as people who are white, who are male, and who are cisgendered. So the work that I do is kind of tackling those issues head on by creating, in partnership with communities and with other sectors, roadmaps to help mobilize all of us, help us work together to create the health that we can all imagine for ourselves.
And last but not least, I guess I come at it from a nonprofit standpoint, being with an organization that's mission-based. So I think when I'm thinking about health and wellness from the Summerstage lens, we're really thinking about access, but just as importantly, community in a way that is about really, to us, healthy communities have to have access to arts and culture and many other things, but we don't do everything. We do arts and culture, and actually other things like community organizing and sports, education. We're a nonprofit that's multifaceted. But as it relates to arts, since that's what I do at the organization, thinking about the fact that communities can have a place that is safe, where they can be joyful and see art that's representative of them and celebrates their community and people that look like them, or cultural, particularly at Summerstage, we think a lot about art forms and musicians and genres that are distinctly New York. So if we're in the South Bronx or in Lower East Side, we're thinking about musical genres and artists that really represent those communities so that we can be a safe space for communities to celebrate. And we feel like that's really essential to New York living, that those moments of respite or just relief where communities can come together with no barrier and no ticket fee is really critical to quality of life, ultimately. So I think that's where we're coming from.
So a few of you guys touched upon this or mentioned that you guys were brought together because you're redefining and pushing forward some of these agendas. The most recent initiatives that you guys are working on that kind of address wellness and mental health and kind of bringing these communities together. And the second part is, what are some of the challenges that you faced in implementing that?
Well, when we think about the nightlife ecosystem and really who the Office of Nightlife is representing, it really doesn't really miss anybody in the sense that we are looking at the nightlife owners, operators, employees, performers, workers, patrons, residents, and visitors. And so the challenge is, which I'll start, is that, everything and everyone is equally important. And given the fact that this is a new office and we're setting the foundation and the framework for what this office means and what it can do and what the priorities are, it really is about addressing the needs of everyone equally, whether it be from the economic standpoint and being able to run a thriving, surviving business, or whether it be a worker or a performer and an artist, having fair compensation, access to health care, and attorneys and legal, and knowing their rights if they're immigrants. And when it comes to the patrons, being able to ensure that they understand the new ethics of nightlife, whether it be from consent or bystander training, learning how to look out for each other. For residents, right, the quality of life issue in regards to how can we coexist. We have the right to exist as nightlife, and residents also have the right to quality of life for themselves, and also for visitors to come and to be able to have a safe, healthy, and vibrant experience. And so the challenge is to be able to address all of those needs simultaneously, but more important, since we are the first, to be able to really define what those needs are and to make sure that whoever comes after, that they understand what those priorities are as well. And again, there's so many great things happening in the public and private sector. So we don't necessarily have to create too much. What we're really doing is sort of creating this umbrella, this common ground where we can amplify and organize and make accessible what is available, and to really ride the wave of this movement of consciousness that everyone is on, eating healthier, taking better care of their bodies, and taking better care of each other. And I really think that nightlife is the perfect place to create opportunities to look out for each other and ourselves. And our role is to just be able to provide as much information, communication, and education as possible.
I can talk about some of the initiatives we at House CS have gotten into. We think of it in two ways. We have a really large staff of about 100 people, and then we have all of our customers, which is thousands. So the staff, basically the issue with the staff is that every night at House of Yes, for a customer, it's maybe their one night of the week that they're really going out and getting wild, but every night of the week is that for us, working there. And most people who want to come work at House CS are very creative, have like a wild side, love to party. So there is always that fine line that being in that environment really often for somebody who's already kind of weighted towards that lifestyle can be dangerous. And we've seen it get unhealthy quickly for certain people. So basically, we have quarterly classes on certain kinds of training. Like we talk about, we're all mental health first aid responders, for instance. So we'll give everyone a paid day off to go and take this class, and we all take it together, and we study together. So it kind of creates this community around the mental health issue where we're all learning about it kind of for ourselves, but also so that we can help other people. We have an extensive library now in the office, so even after the test, we can all kind of quiz each other and talk about it, and it's a topic of conversation around the venue. We do Narcan trainings, which is like helping people in the midst of an opioid overdose, and that also relates to things like cocaine that is laced with fentanyl. A lot of people in nightlife are, partaking in drugs, and it's just, it is a part of the scene, even though I do feel like it's getting less and less. So all of our staff is really well educated, And it's a really important thing for us. So it's not mandatory, but we do offer like paid days off for all of these kind of courses and classes. And we do that, I would say, once or twice every quarter for all the staff. And the staff is super interested, and the turnout has been really, really high, even though it's like 8 hours in a classroom and it starts at 8 a.m., not necessarily what these people are used to as far as their employment. So that's been a really positive thing that's been happening. And it also kind of sets an example for the customer when you come in and the whole company has this air of like health and community, and dancing is such a great healthy way to express yourself, and that's really what we're there to do, is to be together and to dance. Associated with that, we do sell alcohol, and it can be a slippery slope for people because it's a place to come and lose yourself in the spectacle. So we really try and keep an eye on that. We also have an amazing EMT staff, and they give courses at the venue for all the staff, so they educate us about how to deal with clients and also how to deal with ourselves and with each other. Anytime somebody is maybe not getting enough sleep or seeming a little stressed, there's group emails that are going out around the venue, just letting everybody know this person might need some community at this time, and then we'll all sit and talk to them. And it's had tremendous effects of, first of all, bringing the company and the employees together, and also just setting an example for everybody. So if somebody's going off the rails, they know that they're not going to be judged, they're not going to be fired, they're not going to be made an example of, they're going to be taken care of. And that has been a really, really great thing for the company. The other side is dealing with the customers. So basically, the best thing that we've come up to now is having a lot of sober events, which has been really, really amazing. Kind of showing people that you can come and party and dance and actually get really high from it without any alcohol or any drugs at all. And this is actually a movement that's spreading around the country and around the world, and those events sell out every time. So that's a really amazing thing to think about. Yeah, so that's basically, we spread the word about those sober events, and we kind of promote them, and we offer coffee and free water and a lot of non-alcoholic beverages as well, and we really promote that kind of thing, just so that people know that if they don't want to drink or if they're kind of going through a thing, they can still come and be in the community and be a part of the event. It's not based around alcohol and drugs.
I'll just also interject one thing that I know we've spoken about at one point was even offering some kind of financial classes, because many of the people they work they kind of work all day and all night, and then they're so exhausted from it that they go and spend out everything they make, and it leaves your mental state kind of in a in a constant panic. I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Well, sure, about financial health. I mean, we have a lot of performers and drag queens and pole dancers and all kinds of folks from all different musicians. And it was a shock to me after my first year to realize that none of them really know anything about paying taxes. They don't have any financial plan whatsoever. They're coming to me asking me for an advance because they literally have no money. I'm like, what have you done with all the money? So that actually really came as a shock to me. So I started interviewing people who were willing to talk that work for me, and realizing that, wow, they really have no education whatsoever about what to do with their money, all the tax benefits that they're entitled to as artists in New York City, as freelancers. And I always felt like, having a strong team, if our employees are financially stable, then they're going to be more emotionally stable, and it's just going to help the company. So on the one hand, they're my dear friends, and it's really important to me to give them any knowledge that's going to help them in their life. And it's an amazing business decision because it gives us a really solid foundation of people who are secure in their own life, not living check to check. So yeah, we have tax advisors come in and talk to the 1099, the independent contractors, and the W-2 employees about how they can mitigate their expenses and write things off and deal with being an artist in New York City. And it's had quite a lot of interest from the staff and a lot of traction. And just making it a talking point. Also, there are books in our staff library about such things, and letting people feel comfortable, they're often embarrassed. Oh, I don't have any money. They don't want to talk about it, this and that. So it's kind of now, the taboo has been lifted, and it's an open discussion that people talk about in the venue. And I think that's been really positive. We're still working on that.
Wow, this is a club?
It's more than a club. I mean, it isn't just a nightclub. It's a real community space, and it's been around for a long time. The idea of House of Yes has been around for longer than just this club has been. And we never really set out to open necessarily a nightclub. We were very inspired by Burning Man, which is a great mecca of people who are coming there with a shared ideal to talk about it and learn about it and learn about each other and learn about themselves. And that's really the idea behind it. The nightclub is one small portion, I think.
And you have live musicians?
Yeah, we have a lot of live music, yeah.
You need to go by there.
Come on January 22nd, some amazing live jazz.
I just want to interject very quickly. The House of Yes, we also do a lot of work together. We've worked on the fentanyl campaign, but a lot of venues such as House of Yes and others are doing such incredible work with educating they're really a gold standard. And we do tend to look to what other venues are doing and then look again to amplify that citywide. So for the rest of 2020, it's really about educating the entire industry and ecosystem on similar programs and initiatives on everything that they're doing. We want to do citywide.
Yeah, and it's a sound business choice. That's really the thing that we need to get across. You can look at a P&L. It's like these are sound business decisions, and they only increase the productivity and the charisma of your entire business, really.
It's super inspiring to hear all this. And it reminds me of a story when I first started working in public health, as an artist working in a non-arts field. I was really excited to work with all of these scientists, these like really smart people. And, one day I sat them down and said, what's the answer? Like, what creates health? And the answer was, it's complicated. Because in reality, it's all of these things, right? It's not just about what you eat. It's not just about getting exercise or drinking water. It's about all of it, including your financial health, including the quality of your relationships, including what's going on in your neighborhood. So what we're doing with Take Care New York to kind of try to plug into all of that is we're getting ready to launch the next iteration of our blueprint. So this year, we're going to kick off Take Care New York 2024, which will be an update to our plan and a new set of directions on our strategic roadmap. So as we're getting ready to do that, we are currently going out to kind of have conversations with people where they are, whether that's in parks or in venues or at community centers, to start to understand for New Yorkers what creates health for them and what their priorities are. As the city, we were talking earlier about how, we have all of these incredible resources as the city, and we also know that our fellow New Yorkers are themselves resources and are able to really come together in unique ways to really address some of these challenging health issues that we're facing. A lot of times, everyday folks have more insight and more answers than those of us who sit in offices all day. So, we're going out, we're having these community conversations. We're actually providing small grants to folks to convene 30 to 50 members of their community to have these conversations. There's information about that opportunity on our website. And what we're really trying to do is dig beyond the traditional model of public health, which says it's up to you by yourself to create a healthier life. We really want to move ourselves and our communities towards this more collective model that my colleagues are talking about and give everybody the networks and the ideas and the resources in order to pursue those initiatives. So that's the work that we're launching this year. Keep your eyes out and please come to our community conversations. And if you want to host one, we'd love to work with you on that as well.
This feels like a bit of a stretch for me because my initiatives are not quite as overt as that, since they're much more mission-based again. But the stuff that I was thinking about that is within sort of my purview and that we have focused on, because a lot of what we think about in programming and what I do all day long is think about how to accurately reflect the communities that we are in and hyper-local representation on a regional level of the city, so that when we're thinking about what we're going to program in Brownsville versus what we're going to program in the South Bronx, it looks different because those communities are different. And we're really sensitive to that, and I think we do a really good job of tapping into that. We also, so in terms of initiatives, though, to address that, a couple of things. This last year, we committed to a keychain initiative, which is a global initiative for festivals to reach gender parity by 2022, meaning 50% of the performers are women or non-male identifying performers. And we thought it was really important to try and see if we could put a stake in the ground and say that we would commit to that and move the dial on festivals, just including women in a really visible way. And then we also decided 2 years ago to work really locally with community-based organizations on a much more deep dive, conversational, reoccurring relationship to talk about what they would like to see in their neighborhood. Because, of course, we do Summerstage across the city from May through October, but we're in that one neighborhood for that 1 week, once a year. And it's, although many of our staff or extended staff know about certain communities, we don't all live in every neighborhood. So it's important that we really thought and spoke with actual community members. And it was amazing what we were able to hear direct from the community about what they wanted to see in their neighborhood that wouldn't have necessarily occurred to us, but that we were able to empower and bring to the stage. So if it was an artist, that's what we can do that. And it was a really great way to feel like we were both engaging the community in a real way around art that mattered to them, and also being able to deliver on that and give platform to artists that spoke to the communities that were there. Separate from that, also many, many opportunities for conversation and workshops in the dance space. We do modern dance across the city and in Central Park, and our curator there is really steadfast about there always being a workshop for people beforehand, because dance sometimes can feel not very welcoming and people feel like dance isn't for them. And giving students and from young to old a chance to be up on stage doing a workshop around dance and movement, and feeling like both they're seeing people that look like them on that stage dancing, but that it's something that they can aspire to be, or that doesn't have to feel like something that's separate from them or not accessible, is something that she feels really strongly about. And then again, citywide and Central Park, we've spent a lot of time in the last, I'd say, 5 years thinking about how we serve young people. And again, if we're just talking about health and well-being, just where we can serve young people in a really meaningful way. And instead of just being a presenter that puts on our one kid day a year and says, that's it, we've served young people, we started doing a more arts-intensive model, so long-term engagement in a community. We decided to commit to the neighborhoods that we present our festival and go into those communities and give artists and residents opportunities and teaching artists, engagement with community groups, and then inviting those same students into Central Park to have that experience, and trying to really inspire young people, whether they intend to go into the arts or not, that the arts is not something that's separate, that's not something that is not possible, or just give them larger exposure to concepts and things. And everything that we're doing is around the theme of New York City, so that if you're living in the South Bronx, you're understanding how important and critical that neighborhood has been to the cultural landscape of the city. And if you grow up there, you might not have that opportunity otherwise to get that message that you're not disconnected from this larger cultural landscape, that your neighborhood is deeply important to the fabric of this city, and you can participate in arts in any way that resonates with you. So,
Wow, that's a lot.
so sorry, that was a lot.
No, but I think all of you guys do quite a huge amount of things and initiatives, and I'm curious, in different ways. I'm curious how you balance that with the huge list of priorities that are on your list, and I'm coming from and I'm asking this question because you obviously work on the city government level. I remember when you were starting House of Yes. I mean, House of Yes was very bootstrapped. You're coming from the nonprofit side, and I know that I've been in the situation as a presenter, as a producer, where time and resources are limited. So how do you guys face that, considering not all of these things are part of your job description?
Well, I think you can bend time and space to your will, and I don't feel the limit. Yeah, I don't feel the limitation of time. You get up and you have your priorities and you go for it, and everything's important and everything needs to get done, and they're all within our job, my job description anyway, as vast as it may seem, making sure that we are realigning the nightlife ecosystem. And I like to think of it as sort of like a chiropractic adjustment to align the resources and the people and the needs to make sure that everything is flowing and being supported and respected and appreciated in a way that ensures health for the industry and the people within it. And I think, you just deal with one thing at a time in front of you like you do for everything, and you get it done. It's important and necessary, and in the grand scheme of things, time is limited. I don't, this, eventually there will be another person in this position, but to create this foundation to make sure that it's working is the primary purpose. And so we reach out to the partners, right? I think the most important thing is not even to be disillusioned into thinking that this is my sole responsibility. This is about collaboration and partnership with the people who are equally as passionate as we are, and not to do this alone. There are people, similarly, for example, House of Yes is an amazing example of how nightlife can be an opportunity as an infrastructure to support its patrons and workers. And when we see things that work, that are really working, then we share it and we educate people on how to do that. And I think that this really is, I said it earlier, it's like sort of from ear to toe, or head to toe. There are so many things in regards to like ear health, right? We're not necessarily something you would think about, where how can we make sure that people who are working in nightlife and going out in nightlife are protecting their ears and their hearing? And how are we making sure that people are eating right? I like to call it like night care or daycare for nightlife. And I think just bringing the awareness about it in general and connecting with everyone that thinks that it's as equally as important, and making sure that, again, it's about educating and access and letting people know how they can be involved. And the beauty of being at the mayor's office, which is still pretty wild to me, is that I have the opportunity to take the best information and the best strategies and the best information and to share it. And it is also a global movement. If we think about the SDGs and the United Nations and the sustainable goals, nightlife can align with those goals as well. And I've been on many panels actually around the world at this point talking about how nightlife can align with the global sustainable goals and how we can think about food rescue and plant-based life and how we, as a nightlife community, can actually make the entire world a better place.
I feel like I really want to build on that, because what is exciting to me about what you're saying, and I think a lot of what we're really trying to do with Take Care New York, is a different way of doing government, right? Instead of coming in and saying, we know what's right for you, how do we create the conditions where the wisdom of communities, the brilliance that exists already can emerge, that it has the support to flourish, that the people who know their communities best have what they need in order to support their communities. And we're not always thinking about what can we do. It's like, what can we do together? So what we have at the health department and can kind of bring to those collaborations is we have a lot of data. We can really tell you a lot about the numbers, but what we need help with is taking those numbers and turning them into stories that resonate with folks. We have the ability to convene, to bring people together, to have conversations, but what we need are those individuals that people want to have conversations with. We have the ability to develop policy and to advance policy, but what we need is the deep wisdom of communities to understand how those policies need to work and what they need to accomplish. And I think that's really what we're trying to do as well.
We can work together on that. I think what's been really incredibly interesting and I think evolutionary in the work that I've witnessed with the Department of Health, and I think that you could attest to the whole approach in the past historically in regards to drug use has really been a criminalization of the individual, of the venue. If there's drugs, we have to shut them down, we have to arrest people. And what I've since witnessed when we first got into this position, in regards, let's say, to the fentanyl campaign. And the Department of Health has posters now that says, doing cocaine tonight? Well, if you are, did you know that there's fentanyl, potentially fentanyl in your cocaine? And if you're doing it, don't do it alone. And they're walking around, the Department of Health, giving these posters out. And we did a press conference at the House of Yes with the Commissioner of the Department of Health. And I think that this is the evolution of thought and consciousness that we're talking about, and about meeting people where they are and more reality-based education and lack of enforcement, really. And being able to say, saving lives is the most important thing. And, you know, we're not going to see this as criminal behavior, but how can we help you to have Narcan behind your bar to make sure people aren't dying, you know, of an overdose? And being able to think about policy and how to make these legal changes. And again, I think the Office of Nightlife in general and through all the agencies and through the good work that's being done is about decriminalizing real life.
I love that. That's so true. I mean, most of these people are not out doing drugs to be criminals. A lot of the people that do drugs, especially in a social setting like that, have, you know, bigger issues at home and in their family, and you know, they're really not criminals at all in that way.
Bar owners are not criminals either. And, you know, that fear, or festivals, you know, like, and I think the whole idea of having EMTs, you know, there is also this destigmatization. Well, if you have EMTs, you must have, you know, rampant drug. No, we're actually looking out to make sure that this is what real life is, and we're prepared for that. And
preventative.
Yes, preventative. This is all about, you know, being able to have prevention, awareness, education, support, destigmatization, and I think it's only going to elevate the ways that government can help by not criminalizing, and the way that venues can help their patrons, and so on and so forth.
I can touch on your question about where it lies in our list of priorities. I think for us, myself and my partners all have either some sort of history of mental illness or addiction, so it's kind of always been very close to our hearts. And it's also proven to be a very good business decision when we just pay things forward, because these initiatives do cost money, but the reward is a little bit more farther down the line than some business owners are willing to risk. But they're proven rewards. That's as far as training our staff and really making sure that the culture of the business is healthy and thriving. I think part of it is that we have this kind of history just individually, so it's very important to us. And also it's just been proven that it's a really good thing for the business and for the local community as well.
Well, I'm just also curious to speak to, in terms of the resources. I mean, you mentioned obviously that you could bend time and space, but for those of us who can't do that, you know, how are you kind of how are you guys managing that? I mean, from the nonprofit standpoint, from, you know, again, from people that are starting new companies, and especially for those business or, you know, bar owners that are thinking, well, I don't have the time or the staff or the capabilities. I mean, you're obviously a few years down the line, but what was it like at the beginning? Did these things, you know, you were the longest running.
We weren't doing this at the beginning.
Right, but I think also setting a reasonable expectation for people that are listening and thinking, well, I am interested. What was that time? How did that timeline look for you? And when were you willing to take the risks on saying this is the standpoint for some of the more controversial you know, things, or, you know, forward-thinking initiatives?
guess just since I haven't said anything yet, but I don't think we take anything that's too risk-taking. I think we do things that are just smart and relevant and related to the work that we do. So I won't take credit for that, but thank you. But I guess I'd be super remiss if I just didn't talk about the human toll as a human and a person and a mom and all those things. I mean, when we talk about priorities and a nonprofit and we're talking about health and well-being, I would say we do not do a great job. And I think nonprofits, generally speaking, and I won't speak for all of them, but certainly at one that does try its best, we are deeply under-resourced, and I have a tiny staff, and I've worked at a job for 15 years that I just did 5 days of 14-hour days. I haven't had a day off yet. So, and that's just to be at a conference, to be here and do winter jazz and do a panel and like whatever.
Thank you for that.
And it's my job, and I love it. So there's the value in something that I find a lot of reward in. So that does give you inspiration and keep you going. But the health toll and the lack of maybe life-work balance, I find many of my friends in all kinds of cultures struggle with that. Whether you're at a night, a venue or a festival. In the summer, we virtually have no days off. That's 3 months of no days off. I have a small child, so, there is a lot of sacrifice and a lot of not taking care of yourself in the nonprofit world to deliver for communities, to deliver for others. And I don't know what the answers are. I'm always grappling with it. I'm always trying to do better. I'm always trying to force myself to take a day off. But, we're attached to our phones and we're, connected all the time. So it is really, really hard to unplug. And I don't know what the answer is. I think about it all the time because we put in way more hours than our job description would, but it's what's necessary to get the job done. And when you love something and you care about what you're doing, you're going to see it through no matter what. But I do genuinely wish there was more ability to have the resources to take care of myself and my staff more than we currently do.
I think that's sort of where the Office of Nightlife sort of comes in, or where I hope that the Office of Nightlife can come in to be able to make more available and just to be more aware of what the resources are and to be able to provide that in a way that is accessible and affordable and easy and makes sense and brings awareness. So really after almost 2 years of being in the Office of Nightlife and realizing what the issues are, realizing where the resources are, making the relationships, the rest of 2020 is about sharing that information and having panels and workshops and seminars about the health, the overall health of the ecosystem of nightlife, from the owner, operator, employee, performer, patron, resident. And that goes as far as the agencies and compliance and rules and regulations and being able to stay on top of that, to bystander training for consent and sexual assault training and drug awareness, to mediation services that we're now doing with residents and venues to help heal the relationships, which we also were able to be successful relatively with House of Yes. And being able to sort of take the panic out of living and out of running a venue and living next to a venue and feeling like there's hope and there's resource and there's direction. And I think that, again, just by realigning and providing resource and support and education, that we can take better care of ourselves as well. And daycare for nightlife is very important. Yeah. And
daycare in general, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just like as a woman in any kind of business, it's obviously not, dedicated to this path. I mean, it is like a city that, and look around to see about how many children you see in New York City. It's not that many. It's really hard to raise a family here. So that's part of all of this ecosystem, because if you can't afford to leave your child at home and go to work or go out at night, it affects all of us.
And there's so many resources that are available to be able to support, but you're so busy running Summerstage in New York City for 3 months, and it's actually a full year-long endeavor. It's 12 months to make those 3 months happen. So
So that's actually
my
really
goal is to help provide that resource.
Well, so that's actually a good segue, because I think I mean, from that side, where things potentially are under-resourced and there are resources available, I myself had, mentioned that I've had friends and things I've helped, but didn't know where to look. What are some of the things that you guys are doing to get the word out? What has worked? What hasn't worked? How can we be more effective? Because, even in terms of funding nonprofits or finding that kind of support, there are definitely, we know that there are resources out there. So how can we connect those dots?
I can jump in. So the last time we launched Take Care New York, we also did a series of community conversations where we went out to neighborhoods to ask people about their health priorities. We convened those meetings, and we had 28 of them, and I think we saw about 1,000 people total. Through those conversations, which it's wonderful to know what those 1,000 people think. But I'm not sure that we can say that that's a citywide conversation. So I don't know about you. In nonprofits, we hear a lot about, well, we got to get flyers out, or we got to get social media out. But I've never done anything because I saw a flyer for it. I've done it because somebody that I knew invited me to go with them. Maybe they saw it on a flyer. I don't know. They're a different person than I am. So my point is, I think that what works is working with people who gather people. And some of us are those people,
Like
right?
nightclubs?
Like nightclubs. And creating new ways, new opportunities for the people who already gather people to have the information that they need, the support that they need to connect with their people, and to have that reciprocal relationship. And I think, for me at least, that's what works.
Yeah, we do a lot of information kiosks at our parties, which has been really helpful. We do everything from HIV testing to safe sex and condom distribution and Narcan training at the party. And those little stands that we set up, either outside in the yard if it's warm or inside in the front room, they get a lot of action and a lot of traction, and people are super curious. At first I was like, I don't think somebody who's coming out to party on a Friday night is gonna go to this information kiosk, but there's a line all night long, and we do that quite often. It's really, really cool. It's just amazing that people, even on a Saturday night when they're having some drinks, want to understand the effects of alcohol, and are they an alcoholic, and how can they tell, and these kind of things. So that's been really cool.
And you can't really help people if they don't know you're there, right? If they don't know that it's available or a resource. So it's so important, the outreach and awareness. We did our 5-borough listening tour and all that stuff, but again, I think partnerships is really important so that you're not the sole amplifier. You have partnerships with other venues, being able, eventually to be able to reach out to the entire nightlife ecosystem and be able to say, I need you guys to spread this word, right? And to have a universal message going out on all social media platforms. Again, being at the mayor's office, if need be, we can call New York One, and getting the message out. It's really about making sure people know what we're doing, not just doing great things. Otherwise, it's a tree that fell in the woods. It's absolutely useless information that just makes us feel good about ourselves that we're doing great things. Yeah. But it's the most important thing is making sure that people have the information that can help them, and that is the top priority.
And I would just add that as a business owner, we keep a very open dialogue about substance abuse and mental health within the company. So one of my partners has mental health issues, and she sees a therapist, and everybody knows about it, and half the staff now sees the same therapist. And these are people who had never gone to a therapist before. But that's been really amazing. And maybe I stopped drinking for 6 months, and other people got the word, and they asked me why, and then they were curious. So we all talk about these things very openly, and I feel like that has been really helpful to building the strength and health of the company and the employees, having no stigma whatsoever. They can come right up to the owner, and they know that, and say, oh my God, I drank too much last night, and the night before, this might be a problem. What do you guys think? We're not gonna suspend them because they drank at work. We're gonna try and figure out what's going on.
No, the way that we would amplify what they're doing organically, the First Lady, Charlene McCrae, has an initiative called Thrive, which is which is also through the Department of Health, which is a mental health awareness initiative. And they go into offices and places of work throughout the city to help educate owners about how to be aware of their employees' mental health and how they can be supportive to them. And so what we've done through the Office of Nightlife and what we try to do with all agencies is to put night vision on everything, right? So there's the Thrive program. We're creating Thrive at Night. So that's now 2-tier, where the Thrive program goes in to help educate the owners about making sure that their staff knows that that this is a safe place, that there are resources, that they won't be judged, that they will support and help them. And then we're taking that further and helping the owners help to train their staff on how to be bystanders for patrons as well. So, everyone says like the bartender can be your first therapist. And so maybe they're sitting there and you have a patron who's woefully depressed, possibly suicidal, maybe in an abusive relationship. What is that bartender supposed to do? We're not saying you need to diagnose them, but to be able to give them the education to identify and provide information and guidance, and to make people feel that nightlife is a safe space and a safe place to be able to reach out, or maybe be reached out to, just checking in with people. And so through this Thrive at Night initiative, it's very much echoing what House of Yes is doing, again, organically through that empathic place of looking out for their employees and patrons and communicating that as the way to go in general. And I think when you even start with just mental health awareness and consent awareness and drug awareness, it's just all about awareness. And so the more awareness, the more resources, the better and healthier it's all going to be.
Well, I just wanted to also make a note. It's very clear that you all work together, and I think the value of in some different way, the value of partnership to kind of get these messages across and services across. I mean, I know, Ariel, you were talking about the the health of your ears, and there are organizations. What was the one? Eros, yeah, and so they're coming in and providing, what is it, customized plugs.
Well, they're here today, so
cool.
Everyone can.
Great.
They are really touting the message of ear health awareness. Yeah. And again, this is one company, one organization that is doing something great that I was able to be aware of. And now, as the Office of Nightlife, I can help share the whole concept of ear health and your hearing, to everyone. It's something where I don't have to just benefit for myself, but I have the opportunity to tell 8.6 million people.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, Grammy Music Cares does similar stuff, and I think, the way that you guys are working together, there's absolutely, it takes the load off of thinking that as a venue, you need to be the one bearing that cost. Bringing in people that are interested in those things definitely makes a difference. I wanted to go back to something that Erika touched on, which was the toll that it takes on you as an individual. And I'm curious, you as individuals, what do you do to maintain your health and sanity and peace of mind? Not everyone at once.
I mean, that's a really difficult subject. But I also feel like, you wouldn't open a nightclub or what we're doing unless you are somewhat of a workaholic, because that's really what it takes. So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the work-life balance, and, I can sit here and talk about health of our employees, but I probably don't have a healthy work-life balance. I definitely don't. So that's definitely something that is a tough one. I mean, it's hard to understand when the fact that you love to work, where that ends and where just absolute workaholism begins. I definitely don't know the answer to that, but I will say that transcendental meditation has been amazing. And I did stop drinking. That also really helped for me personally. just gave me that extra energy. And I try and just get to nature as often as possible. Well, like when I can.
Something I'll just say on the, because we actually had one of the head of the David Lynch Foundation earlier here. But TM is, a great thing that I've actually heard from a lot of people, and taking a moment out. And there's a saying that if you can't find 20 minutes out of your day to, take a break or meditate, then you should find 40 minutes out of your day to do that. So yeah, I'm kind of right there with you.
Yeah, and TM, whatever, just any type of like meditation has really changed my life entirely. Just shutting off from the outside world and being alone with my own mind, that is really powerful.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, meditation is essential for staying centered and not panicking about life and living worry-free, even though you have a lot of responsibility and burdens. And for me to stay relatively healthy, I think work-life balance is an illusion that's a setup for failure. Just the idea of saying that is like, it's an ebb and flow, and you're never going to fully be balanced. But I think just staying as happy as you can and worry-free as you can, and having trust in yourself and the universe that you're on your path and living your destiny, and that everything is right on time, and just keep going and don't worry. And then don't worry, be happy. Exactly. Bobby McFerrin philosophy of life in general. And I think more than anything is living a life of service and looking out for other people other than yourself is so fulfilling and so energizing and makes you so high and happy that I think that is really the ultimate theme of this whole night, and what we all do and what everyone in this room does is thinking beyond themselves and how to make the world and people a better, healthier place. And if you live a life of service, then you can live a happy, healthy life yourself as well.
Yeah, Erika talked about being a parent. I'm a new parent. I have a 5-month-old daughter.
And it's her first night out tonight since she had a baby, so it's amazing.
But one of the things that I've learned a lot in these 5 months. It's been a crash course. But one of the things that it's really taught me is how to lean into my community, which has been a greater gift than I think I could have ever anticipated. And so now moving forward, I'm really focused on being an active part of a group of folks, being part of the active group of folks that took such good care of me, so that I can also be a part of that kind of reciprocal care, because it's very beautiful to receive it.
So I guess I was the first to admit I definitely don't have it figured out, and I deeply struggle with this all the time. But the few things that have worked for me, I mean, I feel like I do have everyone's busy. It's New York City. I mean, that's just like what it is. It's a very tough city just to live and work and afford your rent and all of those things. The few things, I mean, I think when you can, just even tiny bits of getting out of your space, whether that's going to a park with your dog and your kid or by yourself, whenever I can travel, and I'm lucky to be able to travel because of work, and using your vacation days. I, for years, never took a vacation in summer. For over 10 years, I never went anywhere in summer because I have run a summer festival. How could I possibly go away? And learning to have those boundaries and say, no, I can go away for 2 days. Like, it'll be okay. That's the wisdom of having done it for 15 years, though. The first 10, I didn't feel like it was acceptable. So, you learn as you go and you try and do the best you can. I think generally just, trying to find those even small moments of, getting a coffee by myself in the morning. I get up about 6 in the morning to get my son to school. And there is, I would say a good hour between when I drop him at school and when I really have to be at the office. I'm often at my office 2 hours before anyone else because it doesn't make sense to go back home. And those hours I try not to fill with work, but try and think larger about my life or put goals in place or just think outside the box about stuff. And it's some of the most productive and feel good moments of my day. So wherever you can find happy places, even if they're really small, and then travel always helps, friends always help, seeing great music always helps. And, I think you also have to love what you do if you're going to work as hard as I do. So lucky for me, I really enjoy what I do. But I think in anything that you do, that you are doing it, to the extreme and working really, really hard, just make sure it's something that speaks to your heart so that you feel fulfilled in the work and able to keep doing it at a rigor that's often crazy.
Right. If you love what you do, you'd never worked a day of your life. So I have two more questions, and then I'll open it up to a Q&A. The first is, I'm curious, we're obviously talking about New York City now, but I'm curious if there are, outside of New York City, models and organizations and cities that are doing it right, and that you look to see, look at their programming that's healthy, look at the communities, look at the support they give the members of those cities, that you're thinking, wow, I should put that into my organizations or implement that initiative.
I mean, the only thing I will share that every year am reminded of, and is just, people living outside the U.S. have a much different spin because of the way that those society, in particular Canada, right? There's a lot of Canadians in town for the Jazz Fest and for APAP, and I actually a former employee, my assistant, has moved to Montreal and has a lovely life there, and there's just such a marked difference between the way that Europeans and Canadian, and not all countries, but just social services and those kind of things. So, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get there. We certainly in New York, I do think we are better resourced than a lot of cities. But I would love to get to a place where, childcare isn't even a question, maternity leave isn't. And sure, we have those things, but you don't have a year paid full as your standard, right? So we're getting there. I think we're better than some places. Now there are rules in place. When I started at Summerstage, there was no maternity leave, protocol. So I've seen dramatic change in the positive, but I think we have a long way to go to meet the standards of some of the other countries and the way that they take care of their people.
Well, I just came back from Berlin, London, and Amsterdam for the very purpose of going to see how they... Yeah. I mean, Amsterdam was really the first city that had a nightlife mayor, and that's actually what they call them there, which is why people always call me nightlife mayor for some reason. Well, that is the reason, because there's a nightlife mayor in London. It's a nightlife czar, and it's really great because in Amsterdam they've been doing this over 15 years. So to be able to see what really are the benefits of having a dedicated office, although theirs is not within the government, so it has different freedoms and other restrictions as well. There's so many lessons to be learned around the country and around the world, primarily because New York is huge, and being able to implement creative change or pilot programs are far more challenging. So in a small little city like Amsterdam, they can do different interesting pilot programs. And for example, I was in the red light district, right? Like, for example, if they are able to create some sort of balance and health in a place where heroin and marijuana and sex and everything's basically decriminalized and still have civility and organization and structure. So I walked the red light district with them, and they have what is called hosts or host ambassadors. It's non-enforcement patrol. They welcome people. Welcome to the red light district. We don't allow public urination or smoking or drinking in the streets or loud voices. People live here. And they say, oh, well, thank you for welcoming us. And they get a wristband that says, I respect Amsterdam. And they walk around and it says, ask me on their jackets, instead of like cops on patrol. And there's a sense, it's like having a host at the door of a nightclub. You are welcome here, but there are rules, you know? And so the idea of having hosts that supplement and support the police, but also, I like to call them maybe the shush police is what I had been calling them before. Like people just walking around being like, shh.
Yeah.
Or are you okay? Or do you know where your friends are? Or things like that, which are non-intimidating. I mean, there are examples even throughout the country, you know, in regards to how to help support and preserve DIY spaces, making sure that they're safe, that ghost ships don't occur, that there are pathways to legality that are affordable and accessible to help maintain incubator cultures and safe havens that nightlife creates. And so we don't have to have all the answers, even though New York is obviously the greatest. But we can learn so much from what is happening, and that is what we do.
Anyone else? No? Well, so the last thing, kind of piggybacking on that, then, is action items. So Winter Jazz Fest's audience has artists, friends of artists, presenters from all around the world. What can they do? What is the best thing they can do to help make this city, make the places that they're coming from, make themselves better? What is the number one thing that you're saying, great, please do this?
I mean, there's just so many things that come to mind, but I guess one of the number one things is join your local community board. I know it sounds a little dry and not nightlife-y or sexy, but the fact is a lot of decisions are being made about how, like, what is allowable in communities, as far as the liquor licensing process and who gets a license and who doesn't, and can they have live music or not, or are they allowed to have a happy hour or not? What time should they close? And a lot of the people that are on community boards don't go out and don't own clubs. I sat on my community board for 6 years while owning and operating Sutra, because I felt it was essential to make sure that nightlife was represented in these rooms. And when people say, oh, there's no more live music anymore, or there's no place to go out, or my favorite bar is to close at midnight, it's because of the community boards. And I really think it's important, if you really want to make a difference, it's exhilarating, but it is hard to just be a part of the system from the inside if you can. It's like 1 or 2 meetings a month, and I think having diversity, representation of all kinds on community boards is such a game changer for helping to cultivate and support culture. And so I really would encourage people to do that.
I can say for business owners, I would encourage just a really open dialogue with the staff about health and financial health and mental health and addiction kind of thing. I mean, I'm talking from a nightlife perspective because that's what I know about. But really making sure that the staff feels welcome and open to discuss amongst themselves and with the owners or their managers. That has been really successful for us. And as far as the general public, I think you're right, just about really getting involved in your community and making it a community. Bushwick has changed so much since I moved there, I think 8 years ago, and it was kind of like spots and like different islands of community, but I feel like there's a really strong community there now, and it's made the whole neighborhood more powerful and all of its citizens more powerful. I know who's on the community board, I go to the meetings, I'm involved with the NYPD, and I go to the Build the Block, and it seems time-consuming, but it actually doesn't take up that much time. I mean, like she said, it's 1 or 2 meetings a month, same with the NYPD, and you get to know the faces and know the places and know everybody who's working in what office. You just go by, you say hi, you bring a coffee, and all of a sudden, everybody is kind of friends. And you can get a lot done and make a lot of change a lot faster when you know people's names and they know you. And you guys, everybody has a smile on their face. It really makes a huge difference, and it strengthens the community. And these things are contagious, and they spread.
Humanizing the relationships in the industry, in the community.
So I'm totally going to plug our Take Care New York Community Conversations. Keep your eyes and ears out. We're coming. Please join us if you would like to host one. We would love to work with you on that. But in addition to that, you know, I want to kind of pull out one of the threads that I've heard here a lot tonight about community. You know, there is some research that says that loneliness can be as bad for your health as being a pack-a-day smoker. So take care of your people, find more people, gather, create community, because that's also really critical health work.
I guess this is a different bent, but if there are organizations, whether it's a venue or spaces of any sort, that you believe in their work and think they're doing good things in your community, support them. Go show up, buy the tickets, drink at the bar, support the organizations that you think are doing great things and supporting your community, and making visible communities that maybe aren't getting supported other places. Because whether you're for-profit or nonprofit, without that support, just physically being there or, donate or those kind of things, a lot of businesses can't make it. So I just think that's really critical to the overall landscape, that go where you're celebrated and also support the organizations and people doing work that really matters to you, because it really matters to particularly small businesses and nonprofit, where even a $5 donation can make a difference in it being a sustainable show or model for them.
So I'll open up to a Q&A. Can I get someone to come and pass a mic around? Or
Hi, I've got Reggie Sylvester, working musician in New York City, drummer. I've got two questions. One, by the way, Bushwick is great. I work a lot. I do a lot of Bushwick Public House, I play there a lot in Bushwick. What's been done there the last about 8 years is fantastic. But I live in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and I've been living there actually for 60 years. I look older. I'm older than I look. And what I'd like to know is what I see there. You actually have there is right now a really ridiculously burgeoning scene of music. It reminds me a lot of, I'm back from the Black Rock Coalition days back in the 80s, and it's kind of Bushwick, and that thing is spreading to, it's like a, I guess maybe, Berlin or something. It was like that in the 90s, so they say. It's the same stuff. But the thing, what I don't see, is that there are some of the and actually I do go to the Community Board 3 meetings. I've been going for a year and a half. So I know, and I go to the precinct council meetings. But what I see is that a lot of the restaurants that want to become music venues, AKA going to the state of where they have backline, where they have PA, 1 or 2 monitors. There are small businesses there that actually want to get to that stage. And it's interesting because there are churches there that have killing sound systems, killing backlines, Yamaha, everything, But, I think maybe that the city or the state or something should do something to help these small businesses. I did a Brooklyn Public Library gig. It was supposed to be at the Brooklyn Public Library, but they shifted it. It was great luck. They shifted it from the Macon Library to the small venue across the street, and it was killing. We got 45 people that we got in there. 45 people that came to see us across. The venue owner actually let in kids, and they were spending money, But the thing is, within 6 weeks, I see the New York State Tax Police surrounding the place at like 5 in the afternoon, putting the yellow thing on there. It was traumatizing to the whole community. I mean, eventually that got resolved, I guess, whatever got paid. But it seems like certain parts of the city are hooked into these different programs, and then other parts of the city don't know about these supportive type of things, so a scene can't really develop. But I see the same. I work in Bushwick, so I see what you all have there. It's great. But that actually
just want to make sure other people get a chance to ask a question. So
yeah, but it's a real problem, because sometimes even with Winter Jazz Festival, you're dealing with a certain strata of performer, but there's like a whole other thing that's underneath it. You know, things like Tank and the Bangers and bands like that came from this strata. So I'm just asking this question as someone who's in that strata.
I think I could take it for just a. I think the issue about having accessibility and awareness of support and health and help and resources can feel it as though it's a privilege, right? Like a need to know. Like a lot of neighborhoods and communities don't know what the resources are, and they don't have access to it. And I think the fact that this brand new office of Nightlife, there'd never been one before, so this office is specifically dedicated to the support, resources, respect, and health of the nightlife industry. And it's still in its sort of infancy, but the purpose is to make sure that all 5 boroughs and the artists and the community and the operators and the residents all know that it is here and that it is a resource, and to reach out, not only to be reached to make sure that they know that the resources are there and to be able to help them preemptively, right? Just like health, right? Prevention. It's not just about, following up when a crisis hits, but trying to really create a healthy foundation to be able to sustain itself in all boroughs, in all neighborhoods, businesses, really small, avant-garde, underground, to the very large venues also that need support. So that is the purpose of having a dedicated mayoral office to nightlife, and I think it is turning the tide of being able to, for the industry in itself to feel as though they matter, there's help and support if they want it and need it.
Any other questions? I think we have one over there.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I am the food and beverage manager at the Assemblage. I run our Elixir Bar program, and I also have my own Elixir Bar consultancy business. I've also worked for about 4 Elixir bars, both in festivals and in stable locations, and I'm genuinely curious whether in all of your esteemed opinions, you guys think Elixir bars, aka sober bars, or herbal medicine bars are here to stay, if it's just a passing trend. Also, oh, he's like, I'm into it. Yeah, right. And just also how alcohol really drives a lot of the profits. It's like the budgets. So as someone who puts on events, it's a really tricky kind of relationship. And I'm just genuinely curious what y'all think, because I think it does raise consciousness, obviously. So.
I love the Elixir bars. I have 2 friends actually who have non-alcoholic bars. And it's a struggle. I've never owned or operated one, so I can't exactly speak on the numbers, but no doubt a lot of the reasons that House of Yes in particular can take such crazy risks and do some of the really extravagant things we do is because of the profit margins on liquor. That's for damn sure. So I think the best move for a non-alcoholic bar, I mean, I guess it really depends on the location and thinking through a business plan and putting numbers in, and really talking with somebody who's really good with numbers. If you're talking financially. If you're talking about the no drinking fad, I don't think that that's a passing fad. I think that people are seeing tremendous results in their own life and actually enjoying sobering up. And I don't think it's just like a passing kind of trend. I see it a lot. There's like this event Daybreaker, which is like a morning rave that they worked with House of Yes a lot. And now they're touring all over the world, selling out everywhere they go. The instant tickets are available. They're sold out. And the number one cardinal sin there is to have any alcohol. So, and I see that it's not just them. There's a lot of organizations that are doing nightlife, getting together, having community where alcohol is just clearly not allowed. So I think that trend is actually growing. As far as owning a bar in New York and not serving alcohol, you have to be creative with programming, being able to charge, I think, admission some nights, and also really working with sponsorships. Like Red Bull, for instance, have a lot of money, and they do a lot of creative work, and they have large budgets for sponsorship. So I think between getting creative with programming and with sponsorships, I think it's possible.
I would just say from the commercial music business space, alcohol is where the money is. Most music promoters, even on the large-scale commercial festivals, concession business is such a huge part of making it work to pay the talent. So, I mean, obviously I can't speak for everybody, but when I look at whether you're a venue or even a festival, it's such a big part of the pie. Doesn't mean that they can't maybe both coexist, but certainly alcohol sales and concessions more broadly are really where the only profit margin is for most music venues or festivals. Of course, we are free, but even in our festival, that is a big part of how we're able to even exist. So, not that, yeah.
So part of my background, I ran a national consumer packaged goods company for health food, and I was also a presenter in the nonprofit space, and I booked and managed artists. So I've got a few different lenses. And one thing, being in the health industry, it is amazing how much money those companies have and are interested in. I don't think that's a passing trend. In fact, the company that I worked on was predicated on changing food that was not good for you, but better than the alternative to stuff that was actually good for you. And that has exploded to a multi-billion-dollar market because the audience is there. 100% they're there and they are ready to invest. And I can say, as a presenter, we worked in public parks and in the same park that Summerstage happens, and we weren't allowed to have liquor sponsors because of that. Specifically in Harlem, because there's a there's a history in that park, about safety, and our biggest sponsors were often health food companies and health beverage companies, kombucha, Kind Snacks, and having gone to the different expos and things, I mean, those are it's amazing the audiences that they have and how much money those companies have as a result of it. So I definitely think that it's something that will continue, and it's a matter of creative programming, connecting the dots, and reaching that audience. Because it's not the traditional nightlife audience. These are people that go to Daybreaker, they go to the Get Down, and they're ready to party and kind of embrace themselves and in a way that is healthy, and it's slightly different audience though.
I think millennials, though, from what I understand, the whole idea of going out, what they do when they go out, and the idea of getting really messed up is like less attractive in general. I think it's really more about experience and elevating yourself, and I think there is potentially just even, a whole wave of consciousness generationally that sees nightlife and life at night and sociability in a much broader fashion than we have historically. And the use of retail space and the use of nightlife venues. I think in general, hopefully generationally, we're all becoming more aware. And I don't necessarily think that alcohol is indicative to what a nightlife experience is. As far as projecting into the future, I think creative thinking and having these booths and so forth, it's just a much broader way of being able to use nightlife again as an opportunity for actually making people individually and culturally better.
Yep. Time for one more question.
Mickey? Oh, I'd like to take his question because I invited. No, both is fine.
Yep.
Let's do two.
We can do two.
I'm going to take over now.
It's kind of weird. My name is Derek Washington. I'm a cultural anthropologist and also a United Nations fellow, and talking about the idea of nightlife. So I was in Europe just a few weeks ago talking to the Council of Europe, also delegates of the European Union and United Nations. And for some member states, nightlife means LGBTQ, sex work, and different aspects of that. So what I did was I talked about jazz, and Europe and other places, other member states, they love jazz music, and maybe that's another way to talk about nightlife, because talking about jazz, we could talk about sustainable development goals, and that jazz is played at nighttime, or also Latin music as well. So just as we talk about nightlife, and especially internationally, understanding there's different viewpoints on nightlife, and also that nightlife is a way of freedom for New Yorkers, but other ways it's too much freedom.
Was there a particular question or?
No comment.
Oh, great. So let's take it over there.
Can I hold this mic?
Thank you for that.
Okay. I think it's more of a comment. My name is Misael Ramos, and I've worked in the nonprofit organizations for 22 years. So I've done parties on the same level, like Stonewall, Tunnel, Limelight, that are no longer here. Representing my community, which is the LGBTQ community. Right now, we're dealing with a crisis of substance use and crystal meth usage. And one of the purposes that I wanted to be here for is how can I use myself and my platform to connect what is happening in our community, but also connect them with the harm reduction model. And I'm so grateful to be here to hear your stories and the backgrounds that you guys, the work that you're doing, like House of Yes. I love House of Yes on Wednesdays, once a month, with Queen Beat Productions with DJ Mike Hugh. And you're approaching the Department of Health, and I know that you guys are funneling a lot of funding right now with substance use and crystal meth. And Summerstage, we're gonna definitely connect because I want to see Beyonce. But for me, it was how can I use my platform, in doing this work right now? We have the Kiki functions, the Vogue ballroom scenes, and a lot of the parties that are happening right now, there is a lot of still substance use. And it's cliche to talk about it. So I'm trying to find out a way as an artist, as a director, as a producer, as a writer, as a performer, to infuse my one-man show into the nightlife and connecting all of your services and being the voice.
Well, again, being in government is really about partnership and collaboration and working with people who are so immersed and passionate and involved and have solutions and have ideas and have a network of people. And so it's a natural partnership. It's also a larger conversation. We're not dealing with just helping individual clubs, deal with their issues. It's about the systemic problems, right? Systemically dealing with the city and the agencies, dealing with perhaps disproportionate enforcement and systemic racism or any of the issues that nightlife deals with on every level. Systemically, how can we heal that? And so the way to do that is to go and to partner with people who are in the community, who have solutions, and to work collaboratively and to have an exchange. So we work very closely with the Department of Health and with focus groups and individuals on how do we find out what's really going on, first of all, right? And with G and all the other drugs that are. And I think ultimately it's about helping venues to self-govern, right? Again, it's not about the government saying, well, this is wrong and this is right and this is how you should do it. What House of Yes is a perfect example of, and many other amazing venues that do great work, is about how can we help you self-govern your venue and yourself to make the right choices for your own community and give you the resources you need and tell us how we can help you. So that is really the ultimate goal. How can we duplicate 1 million houses of yeses? How can all the venues that are out there that are already doing great things, most large and small venues are essentially philanthropic organizations in and of themselves. The larger ones, like Tao has Tao Cares, Hotel Chantel every month if it's cancer awareness. All the venues are by nature empathetic and philanthropic. When there's a crisis in the world, whether it be Australia, Bahamas, Haiti, Puerto Rico, who are the first people that really activate nightlife? People give $20 at the door, $100, $80 for Haiti, Coquito for Puerto Rico. Let's figure out how are we going to help, right? So each of these venues and everyone that goes out, this is a philanthropic entity on how we can help each other, look out for each other, and work with each other to be better individual people and venues.
I would also say that what you're doing right now by coming here and connecting with us, if you have a message and you're hearing the importance of this message, that you're interested in integrating in who you are and your focus point from everything that you say, connect with us. I mean, from presenters to nightclub owners to people in city government, and talk about, great, I want to say this and tell everyone in my network about that. in addition to what's going on in New York, I mean, there is a huge scene of conscious music festivals and conscious spaces and things, and I think they're very interested, and as we can see, the trend is going in that direction. So I think as long as you make that a very integral, clear part of your message, people will be interested in giving you that platform.
And be a messenger like you are.
Yeah. So
Thank you guys all for coming. Can you give these folks a round of applause? Take the time. Thank you all for coming. So just wrapping up, I mentioned before, this is part of Winter Jazz Fest. We are right in the thick of it, so there is a week, pretty much a week left of events that is leading up to a Brooklyn Marathon, so please check out the website. There's some incredible performances. We have another panel on Wednesday, another one on Friday, with Jose James and Tali and their new record label, so check that out. If you're interested in finding some resources, from some of the things that we're talking about and more, if you go to the website and click on wellness, there's a list and links of all the different resources and places that you can find this stuff. So other than that,
I'd actually like to also plug nyc.gov/nightlife, right? You can sign up for our newsletter, because we have all these panels and workshops and education, that we would like to make sure that you're aware of and also to be a part of. We also have social media, NYC, that's it, NYC Nightlife Gov on Instagram and Facebook. And I think just stay connected with us and work with us as much as possible.
Yeah, and once you learn about these resources, don't be shy. Tell people, tell your friends, artists. If you think that someone could use this, tell them. There's nothing to lose there. So again, a special thank you to all these folks, to Winter Jazz Fest, Moon 31, and Equilibrium for making this possible.
And thank you to you.
Oh, and thank you to you. So thanks again, and see you soon.